whom you are trying to get rid of this country. They're the same. They believe in the same Allah. They believe in the same Quran. They believe in the same Muhammad. They believe in jihad. They are 100% Muslim. But the one you do business with are performing jihad with their money, which is very important, as much as others in the future will be performing jihad with their right hand, with their body. And that is the reality. There's so much, Brother Brian, about what's happening. Talk about prayer. Yes, the Muslim prayed last Friday in front of Trump Tower in the street, and he could not do anything about it. And don't forget, last prayer day he have a Muslim imam praying Quran chapter 1 inside the Rose Garden for the American people, which teach that Allah's wrath is against the Jews and all Christians are lost. Yep. And he said amen, the imam, and all those who surround him who are so ignorant of Quran chapter 1 said amen. You cannot have a prayer and have a Muslim or anybody else who's
the
not
music's going to play. Got to get this in. Listen real quick, guys. Here we go. Here's Trump. Oh, wait a minute. I got to plug it in. Here we go.
Jeffers. I don't know if he's here. Is he here, Robert? Is he here? Robert Jeffers was on television in 2016 when I just sort of announced I was running. And he said, I know every candidate very well. There was 18 candidates, me and 17 others. He said, I know every candidate very well. And I know Trump a little bit, but he may not be as good with the Bible as some of them. He may not have read the Bible as much as some of them. In fact, he may not have ever read the Bible, but he will be a much messenger for us, and he will get things done that no other man has the ability to get done. And I endorse him fully. And I said, you know, that guy, I didn't want to admit anything, but that was very interesting. And I think we've got more done, Paula, than anybody.
Wow. Apparently he hasn't read the Bible. Oh, boy, folks. Pray for President Trump. Closing comment, Patrick, we got to go. You're muted. All right, they told me we have to wrap.
I can't say anymore.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Take care.
You bet.
You're watching Worldview 2, built on the 35 years of
Colonel Rob Maness has a lifelong record of providing dedicated service to this nation. Having worked his way up from the enlisted ranks to full colonel, he served our country for more than 32 years. He has served as a bomber squadron commander, bomb disposal technician, Joint Chiefs of Staff Operations Officer, assisted the National Security Team with the campaign plan for the global war on terrorism. He authored the first theater nuclear war plan and served as the Vice Commander of America's largest airborne intelligence wing. Colonel Rob Maness is a true American hero. This is Rob Maness Live.
Our military has had a rich tradition with Harvard throughout American history. But today, this university, which receives billions of our federal tax dollars, is one of the red-hot centers of hate America activism. Too many faculty members openly loathe our military. They cast our armed forces in a negative light. Even more troubling is Harvard's partnership with our adversaries. Campus research programs have partnered with the Chinese Communist Party. University leadership encouraged a campus environment that celebrated Hamas, allowed attacks on Jews, and still promotes discrimination based on race in violation of Supreme Court decisions. Last year, the Trump administration put Harvard on notice. Quote, Harvard has fundamentally failed to protect American students and faculty from anti-Semitic violence and harassment, in addition to other alleged violations of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, end quote. Why should the War Department support an environment that's destructive to our nation and the principles that the vast majority of Americans hold dear? The answer to that question is that we should not, and we will not. So, starting now and beginning in the 2026-2027 school year, I am discontinuing all graduate-level professional military education, PME, all fellowships and certificate programs between Harvard University and the War Department for active duty service members. This policy applies to service members enrolling in future courses of study at Harvard University while on active duty. Now, any currently enrolled service members will be allowed to finish their course of study. With some exceptions, the Ivy League as a whole has pervasive institutional bias and a lack of viewpoint diversity, including the coddling of toxic ideologies that undercuts our mission right here in this building. That is why in 2 weeks' time, components of all of our departments, Army, Navy, and Air Force, will evaluate all existing graduate programs for active duty service members at all Ivy League universities and other civilian universities. The goal is to determine whether or not they actually deliver cost-effective strategic education for future senior leaders when compared to, say, public universities and our military graduate programs. At the War Department, we will strive to maximize taxpayer value in building lethality to establish deterrence. It's that simple. That no longer includes spending millions of dollars on expensive universities that actively undercut our mission and undercut our country. Harvard, good riddance.
Welcome back to More War Monday. The Rob Maness Show's live on Worldview Tube and X Spaces simulcast. Well, achieving success with the new national security strategy and national military strategy means strengthening America's military culture internally and supporting our allies' efforts to strengthen themselves. Friends, as Secretary Hegseth said, the U.S. military has always had strong ties to Harvard. I personally stood on the spot where General George Washington took command of the Continental Army for the first time in Harvard Yard when I was a young officer and student at the university's Kennedy School. In those
militaries around the world, and that really saw a lot of what I wrote about in my book, Unfit to Fight: How Woke Policies Are Destroying Our Military, and how those policies from our leadership in Washington, D.C. were so tragically affecting our military to the point where it was dangerous to our national security and in a downward spiral at the Pentagon. So that organization understands what's at stake and why we need to ensure that our military is the most elite fighting forces in the world, that they have the best leadership to ensure that they understand a clear mission and have the resources, the equipment, the technology to accomplish it, to ensure that our nation has the best defenses in the world, and our leadership, the president, the leaders at the Pentagon are able to make the best decisions, and then that elite military is able to execute when necessary.
Yeah, all extremely important, which is why I jumped at the opportunity to become an ambassador when the folks over there asked me to, because those are the kinds of things that all of us, former military officers especially, that have wartime experience should be supporting. So I'm glad that this organization is in existence, to add to all those organizations that you and I have worked with. Some of them, I think, like STARS. I think we both worked with STARS. And I really appreciate your help on all of those things. Let's talk about Harvard here. Now, I went to Harvard at the Kennedy School in the mid-90s. Actually met a Army lieutenant colonel that was going through the War College program, which was called a National Security Fellow, named Mark Esper at the time, and spent a whole year in and out of classes with him and his cohort and everything. But I was just a captain, and I was there for a year on an Operation Bootstrap TDY and got my master's degree. But the environment there was interesting in those days, because the Clinton administration was in, and the professors at Harvard that were related to the government, associated with government, former government service, were generally center-right conservatives, and there really wasn't much, bashing of us military people. But I hear that's I heard what Secretary Hegseth said, who went to the same school later, many years later. But I hear that has changed completely, and now military personnel are being attacked in these schools. Why wouldn't he be right to end it?
You know, as somebody who, I have not been to Harvard, I'm not a graduate of Harvard, but I did do extensive research for my book that really dives into these woke institutions that are affecting our military. And we're spending millions and millions of dollars annually to send our brightest military leaders to these institutions to get an education, to come back to the military, and to be better leaders, to better serve their subordinates. And that's not what is happening. We're seeing these like woke institutions where they're damaging, essentially, with this ideology that they're pushing upon our service members. What I was grateful to see in the address from Secretary Hegseth was that they're not just stopping at Harvard, because yes, Harvard, is at the top. Everybody knows the name and what sort of that pedigree brings to someone, but it is not just Harvard. There are these military graduate school programs that exist across the nation, and most of them are very woke higher education institutions. And so the taxpayer should not be spending money on sending military leaders to get a woke education. And they need to have those programs stop as well. So it's not just Harvard. There are programs like if you put it in Google, you will see the military programs that exist across this country at the university for graduate level programs. And there are all these woke institutions that you have been hearing about for years. So I'm very grateful to be seeing the War Department taking very necessary steps to stop this from happening.
Yeah, I am too. As much as it pains me to say it, because it took a lot of work to get accepted into that school, but I wouldn't be accepted today just because I'm a white male the way I understand it. The what I wanted to ask you about is the war colleges. Look, I'm a graduate of the Navy War College, which at the time I went, and before that was called the Harvard of War Colleges. But we find some leftist, I mean, extreme leftist attitudes from professors that have been at the war college, that are still at the war colleges. Should we be doing an extensive review of all of the folks that are teaching there?
100%. It is like, when you think about it, you're like, who hired these people? I write about in my book, there's a professor that wrote a super anti-military article in the Washington Post. She was a professor at the Air Force Academy. So it's like, who is hiring these people? Why is there no accountability? And why do they have free reign to be so not only just anti-military, but anti-American? And so that is a big problem. They need to do a review of all of the professors or the instructors at these educational institutions for the military. Like you said, some of the war colleges, like, for people who aren't familiar, when you reach a certain rank, you're required to go to different level educational programs. And they, reflect for promotions or different educations and certificates and stuff like that. So why is the taxpayer, once again, sending our military leaders, officers, to go to these schools? And then they're getting this woke ideology that is absolutely damaging to our military, but it also works. The indoctrination of what they are pushing works. And we are seeing that of the military officer corps and the problems that it exists. And I think for too long in our country, it's way different now. People have obviously woken up to what's going on in the military, with leadership at the Pentagon and all of that, prior to this administration. But a lot of people sort of fell asleep at the wheel when it came to the military and the Pentagon, because they assumed, a lot of the military recruits come from red states. People are patriots. People want to serve our country. And so I think a lot of those woke policies sort of slipped in under the radar, and it was easier than a lot of people assumed to indoctrinate these younger generation of future military leaders. Like, look at West Point. West Point is as woke as they come today. They're trying to reverse a lot of the damage that's been done, but we're talking years and years and years, and that, evolves a culture of a young generation. Those people that graduate out of West Point are coming in as platoon leaders and then company commanders. Those are leaders on the battlefield, and they're coming from a woke institution that pushed, you famously heard General Milley when he testified on Capitol Hill about taking courses at West Point titled Understanding White Rage, things like that. It is a real problem in the military. And so everyone should be very grateful that sort of the curtain has been opened and people are now peeking behind the curtain and understanding what's actually going on.
Yeah, absolutely right. We got to take a commercial break. I want to continue this when we get to the other side of this break, Amber, because you're absolutely right. It's about readiness of our forces. And I think the Trump administration and Secretary Hex's team are making some headway, and we'll talk about how that's impacting at least two areas of the world by helping reestablish deterrence with Amber Smith, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense. I'll be right back.
What if millions around the world could access Bible teaching and worldview training for free right now without hitting a paywall? That's exactly what happens every day at worldviewtube.com because of the Worldview Weekend Foundation. We don't lock our live stream behind PayPal. We don't restrict our content to members only. Instead, the Worldview Weekend Foundation helps cover the cost of delivering free educational and ministry programming to people across the nation and around the world. And it's not just programming. My Sunday night church service, where I taught verse by verse through Revelation for 18 months, And now I am teaching through the book of Daniel is made possible through the support of our church, Worldview Weekend Foundation. If you believe this kind of truth-centered biblical teaching must continue, donate today. Go now to worldviewfoundation.com. You'll also find our mailing address and phone number there if you'd rather give by phone or mail. That's worldviewfoundation.com. Thank you.
We're at a moment of unique transformation in the Middle East. And Iran has been the supporter of state-sponsored terror, has suppressed its people, have killed thousands of people over the last month or so. And they're at an all-time point of weakness. The regime is bankrupt. Economically, 80% of the people are in poverty. Its military capabilities greatly diminished by the attacks by Israel and the United States. And the Ayatollah is 86 years old. There needs to be a change. And I think the United States is putting enormous pressure. President Trump's putting enormous pressure. And I think we'll see a change. I don't know if it stays or weeks or months, but I think we're at a moment that uprising in the streets cannot be minimized.
The Rob Maness Show. We're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And my guest today is author and former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense Amber Smith, who wrote a book that's partially titled Unfit to Fight, talking about the woke damaging effect on the military and its readiness. And Amber, welcome back. I want to just come into the real world and out of the academic world to talk a little bit about why we're so concerned as senior officers and defense leaders when we look at places like the Air Force Academy, West Point, of which I think Senator McCormick is an Army officer, and maybe even be a West Point grad. So we're very grateful to him for his continued service. But when we look at this situation with wokeness, it's about readiness. But we find ourselves a year into this current Trump administration, and we've pulled off 3 now marvelously effective military operations, nearly flawless, all planned and operated by the young men and women, and I'm 64, so I can say young, the young men and women that wear this country's uniform, that are performing at a very high level in spite of all of this. But it's still important, isn't it, to get the woke out of all of our academic institutions and our civilian institutions that affect the U.S. Armed Forces, right?
So I think it's such a testament of what good, strong, proper and effective leadership can actually have on the force. And we've seen that with the secretary, the undersecretaries, the service secretaries that are in leadership positions now under the Trump administration. And I think that what you just mentioned, the operations that were unbelievably successful for people who have served in the military, I think have a, very significant level of appreciation for how unbelievable those operations were and what went on behind the scenes to be able to accomplish them in the way that they did. But those leaders that I just talked about inside the Pentagon, they are facing, you saw it on President Trump's campaign trail with the media trying to bring down leaders and trying to throw, every scandal out there to take away from actually doing what they're supposed to be doing as leaders to accomplish whatever mission it is. So they're not just tasked with having to, behind the scenes plan this operation to ensure our national security stays safe and the Western Hemisphere is, our home base and is secure and getting rid of our adversaries that have set up shop on this side of the world. They're also having to fight all of that political stuff as well. So the fact that they have been as successful that they have been in a year is really unprecedented. It is absolutely incredible the level that they have able to ensure success at. And like I said, they have been moving at a speed that is truly unbelievable when it comes to reversing some of the woke policies that, really started in the Obama administration. And then the first Trump administration really tried to counter a lot of those. and saw just how deep rooted some of those policies had become in terms of culture and policy and leaders, the double standards that existed at the Pentagon with uniformed leaders, especially, and now that I think that the military, the rank and file, has appreciated and responded so much to the change in policies that we've seen under the Trump administration with the new leadership.
Yeah. Do you I'm sure you're still talking to people that are in and out of the military, just like I do. The sense that I get from folks is that the pressure of power that was imposed on the force through the woke policies, that pressure valve has been released. So the young people that I've talked to that are still serving are very, I think satisfied is the right word. They're very satisfied that now we're on the right path to get to success, which success means being the most lethal force in the world, and be able, when we call upon them, to go do what they do, which is bring death and destruction to America's enemies if required, and set the conditions for peace or set the conditions for deterrence if combat's not required at that point. That's what we ask them to do. I get the sense that most folks are very satisfied that we're on a good path from that perspective, but there's still a little bit of worry in the back of their minds about the depth of all these woke policies and the lasting impact that they could happen especially if legislation is not passed that turns those policies off instead of just executive orders. Are you hearing anything like that?
I am, and I do think it's reflected in the recruitment numbers. People were not wanting to serve the military under these woke policies and woke leadership, and we've seen a complete 180 in terms of the recruitment numbers and people being willing to sign up to serve the country and want to serve under leadership. And just like you said, it is now okay for our military members to be proud to want to go out and seek and destroy our enemies. Before, it was almost something like the kinder, gentler military, where it was something that it was only, it was like this weird, blurry line now. Now it's okay for them to talk about what they're doing and for them to understand their mission and what that actually means. The military, like, if you're not interested in that, then find something else to do. But don't be coming into the military expecting to have all of this special treatment and double standards and create problems that we saw from the Biden administration and the Obama administration. So I do think that there is some fear within the ranks that this will be temporary. If, a new administration comes in and sort of tries to reverse a lot of the work that was done under this administration, I think that's always going to be, in the back of their minds of, is this just temporary? Like you said, that's why it's so important that a lot of this happens through legislation to ensure that it doesn't ebb and flow with different administrations.
Yeah, exactly right. On the subject of Iran and Middle East peace, my view is that these successes and the exceptional leadership we're seeing from the political appointees, General Kane on the Joint Staff, and other senior leaders are helping to set the conditions for maybe even ending the conflict with Iran that's been going on for 50 years or more. Do you think that the new national security strategy, coupled with the actual outcomes and the actual activities of this administration and how they're demonstrating it, is having a positive effect in that regard? Or do the Iranian leaders still see kind of the stuff we're talking about, maybe a little turmoil inside the country? What's your view on that? But it's my view that I think the new national security strategy and military strategy is working and it is getting to the point where deterrence is going to get reestablished in the Middle East and in the Pacific.
I couldn't agree more. I think that the strategy is very effective. I think it is working very well. I think all of our adversaries have seen, just like we spoke about before, the operations that have occurred in the year that this administration has been in office. And our adversaries are thinking twice before they are making decisions. And, you know, I always say after an operation like this that the president is usually very clear and transparent. And when he says something, our adversaries should probably listen to him and realize that he's telling the truth. And, you know, some of our adversaries, you know, that the risk level that they want to take in terms of calling his bluff varies depending upon what adversary that we are talking about. But I think overall, yes, deterrence is back, and our adversaries will think twice before they want to make a decision that may result with the U.S. military coming within their area of operation.
Well, that's good news to hear. And it's also good news that we're getting about some of our allies around the world. And in the next segment, I want to talk about Japan. The Japanese just pulled off a hugely massive change by election in their government, and the new prime minister is set to have even much more power than any other prime minister in modern times, at least since World War II, has had. And their goal is to do what the Trump administration has been encouraging our allies to do: build up your strength, build up your defenses, because the United States can't go it alone around the world. So after this break, we'll talk more about that election and the impacts of this positive outcome potentially on deterring China. I'll be right back with Amber Smith.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home, went to bed.
Japan's Prime Minister Sanae Takaichi pulled off a major political gamble as voters went to the polls on a snowy Sunday to give her Liberal Democratic Party a landslide victory in a snap lower house election, the nation's second in less than 16 months. Her Liberal Democratic Party won 316 seats, gaining a more than two-thirds supermajority in the 465-seat chamber. That gives the party unprecedented control over the legislative process, the power to override any upper house veto, and initiate the process for amending the country's pacifist constitution, which the party has long advocated. Takaichi now has a strong hand to push through her signature responsible and proactive fiscal policy, or in layman's terms, significantly boost public spending. She indicated in a post-election TV interview that she intends to accelerate discussions around her promise of a 2-year freeze in the 8% consumption tax on food items. And around June, she's expected to lay out measures to attract private investment and boost government spending in a basic economic and fiscal policy. The markets have reacted sharply to the LDP's landslide win, accelerating what has been dubbed the Takaichi trade. On Monday, Japanese stocks reached fresh intraday highs, while concerns over Japan's future fiscal health as a result of Takaichi's pledge to spend more has sent yields on Japanese government bonds up. The yen remained mostly flat in early trading. Analysts said that the election result also allows for Takaichi to dedicate more time on foreign diplomacy. In focus is how she handles the relationship with the US and China. She's heading to the US in March for talks with President Donald Trump, just weeks before Trump visits China to meet its leader Xi Jinping. It remains to be seen how Takaichi handles Japan-China relations after flaring tensions with Beijing in November by hinting at potential Japanese involvement in response to any future Chinese aggression against Taiwan. Some analysts have pointed out that her hawkish stance on China allowed her to win back conservative votes. For a more in-depth explanation on Takaichi's massive win, click on the link in the description.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's Worldview Tube time, and we're live on our X Spaces simulcast. And my guest today is former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense and author of books like Unfit to Fight, Amber Smith. And Amber, one of the reasons why I supported the president is because I had met the Undersecretary of Defense for Policy that's in now, Elbridge Colby, many years ago, and been reading his writings and those kind of things. And in my mind, that the concept of reestablishing peace through strength and having a deterrence policy versus a constant wartime combat policy is much more effective at establishing prosperity, keeping the peace, and those kind of things. And what just happened in Japan with Prime Minister Takaichi's coalition, I think, was probably enabled because of this view and what is now in the national security strategy that was put out in December of the United States, is that people, the voters, felt free to vote for this outcome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Peace through strength is, the overarching theme. And I think that you can say whatever you want. A military or a political leader can talk about anything they want. If they don't have the military behind them to back them up, then deterrence is not going to be effective. So I think what we're seeing with Japan is they will be able to now build their military up to a level that they feel where that they will have the option for deterrence and it'll work better for them. And I think it, aligns with, just like you said, with the Trump administration and the NSS and how that's going to play out in the future, especially in the Indo-Pacific and countering China.
Yeah, there are already some people saying things like, which are silly really in today's environment, saying things like, well, yeah, the last time the right wing won in Japan, they bombed Pearl Harbor. I actually saw that. Somebody wrote it out this morning, believe it or not. Once I got over chuckling at it, I realized that some people just do not like change, but this is a change that's been needed for quite some time. I've advocated that the Japanese government be able to reestablish their actual armed forces because they're kept in this self-defense only box type situation because of the Constitution that the United States helped write, obviously. So I think this is good. And it sends a message to our other allies around the world, right? That same message we've been talking about, that you gotta pull your weight. You cannot be a subject or a client state of the United States.
Yeah, and we're a little bit different world than World War II. But I think, yes, it's very clear that in the global climate today, if you are a passive nation, you will fall under the umbrella of a bigger adversary that is going to be able to squash you. And that's just like what we saw in Japan. The people spoke. They do not want that to happen. They want to be able to defend themselves and have a military that is capable of doing so. And after not having that for so many decades, seeing the rise of China and their aggression in the South China Sea, it is, about time for Japan to say enough is enough. We need a strong military to be able to support ourselves. And yes, we're an ally of the United States, but we're still our own nation. And we need a military that reflects that and is able to defend us against the adversaries that we have independently.
How do you think this will change the geopolitical landscape, especially in East Asia, I've already seen activists in Japan say things like, well, this is the end of communism in East Asia, which to me targets North Korea primarily. And obviously China's there too, but I think that statement focuses on North Korea. Do you think the geopolitical landscape and national security landscape is going to shift, and the United States will have a different role now that Japan is going to resurge from a military perspective?
Not as significantly as or immediately as I feel like some may think. First of all, it's going to require some significant time to do what they're looking to do. That's not anything that's going to happen overnight. And when you look at the adversaries that exist in around Japan, that's not. I mean, China's military is massive. It's not like Japan will suddenly be this superpower that can counter China alone. So no, I don't. I think that the relationship between Japan and the United States will still be incredibly important moving forward with really any of our adversaries that exist in the Indo-Pacific. So I think that it's a necessary step and a positive step for Japan. But does this mean that Japan will rise up and counter China? No, not independently or anytime soon at all.
Yeah. The president mentioned yesterday, I think, that he has a meeting scheduled, and the clip talked about the meeting scheduled with the prime minister of Japan before he goes to see President Xi of China. And he specifically pointed out, and I love the way he does this, we have a really big trade deal that's pending, and it's going to be really good and really beautiful for Japan and for the United States. How linked are trade, the economies, and establishing the military strength to deter the Chinese Communist Party from military adventurism? How intricately linked are those concepts, and why is that important for the American people to understand?
They are absolutely linked. A nation's economy is absolutely important to be able to fund the military that provides deterrence against adversaries. And that is like they are so very well connected. And if there becomes a break in that chain, it can absolutely have a downward effect and affect the military if you can't fund it. We've seen adversaries who have had this happen to them, and we've seen downfalls because of it. Your economy is absolutely crucial to your national security, to your defense, being able to fund your military, ensuring that you have the most up-to-date and innovative technology to counter your adversaries, which is huge right now. We're seeing this innovation race against the United States with all of our adversaries. So if you don't have the economy to back your military, then it is a big problem for your national security for your nation as a whole.
Yeah, and we're in an attempt to actually we're on track to increase our manufacturing capability inside the country now. Shipbuilding and steel are two of the biggest challenges to increase our manufacturing capability here at home. Now the Japanese are shipbuilders and steel manufacturers in their own right. How do you see that playing out with us being able to help each other as the United States tries to achieve that goal while Japan is rebuilding its military force?
Well, they're a very important trade partner, and I think will continue to be so moving forward. We, both are able to support each other in the ways that are necessary. The United States has, the world's biggest economy behind it that will be very helpful to Japan to be able to support it and work through these trade deals. that will be beneficial to Japan's economy. I think that just like we talked about previously, they go hand in hand. So if we are working with Japan to increase their trade and give them more economic prosperity, it is going to benefit them militarily with their defenses and being able to grow in that aspect as well. That will also help with them being able to counter China and other adversaries in the region as well. So this is a win-win, I would say, for all parties involved. And for us to have such a significant and strong ally geographically in that region is very important. So this is all very strategic, I would say.
Do you think that, just before we go to the break here, this is on my mind, the Chinese have been aggressive in the northern Philippine Islands. They've been aggressive in the South China Sea. And they have tried to push around folks on the Solomon Islands and key strategic outposts here that the United States has traditionally been very strong with. This resurgence of Japan, is it going to be complicated because a lot of these different nations were once adversaries, or do you think that they'll just continue down this path like we are with the United States of a peaceful alliance, working together to try to deter the CCP because it's such a large threat to them?
Well, I think that's kind of up in the air right now. I think Japan's stance is very similar to ours right now, which is peace through strength. They want to be seen as a nation that is incredibly strong with their defenses, and that's someone that China has to think twice about rather than just doing whatever they want because of their own military significance. So I think that what we're seeing and what we just saw, there will be some sort of like external pressures to China, but it's going to be interesting times in terms of their own foreign policy and how they're going to handle working with both nations to achieve their own ambitions and their own goals, I think.
Yeah, it's very interesting. A lot of people don't realize that Japan's furthest reaches towards the west are pretty close to Taiwan, which is why the Chinese Communist Party leadership got all in an uproar when they talked about hypersonic missiles being stationed close enough to establish deterrence. So we got to take a last break. When we come back, though, we have to talk about the amazing flyby at the Super Bowl yesterday. If only because I'm a B1 guy and the B1s were leading the pack there. We'll be right back with Amber Smith.
Hello, I'm Brandon House. I want to thank you for all your support at wvwfoundation.com that helps make possible pushing out 24/7 content for free. Without your support, we'd have to put it all behind a paywall. But thanks to you and your support through our foundation, we're able to push it out for free as a broadcast service and broadcast ministry of WVW Foundation. Please consider going there and setting up an automatic monthly contribution, or go there and make an occasional contribution. If you prefer to support us through the mail, you'll find our mailing address there at wvwfoundation.com. You can also call and make your contribution over the phone by calling 901-825-0652. That's 901-825-0652. Again, all these details are available at wvwfoundation.com. Thank you for your support as we try to help people around the world understand the times through the lens of a Christian worldview.
Air Force, Navy, the Air National Guard together performing and celebrating America 250.
Welcome back to the Rob Maness Show. It's More War Monday, and we're live on Worldview Tube and our X Spaces simulcast. And my guest today is Amber Smith, the former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense, author of books like Unfit to Fight, and her story about her time as a combat helicopter pilot in Iraq and Afghanistan. Amber, I do need to say thank you so much for your service and continued service to our country. But I had to play that because I was the commander of the 9th Bomb Squadron, and I was a founding member of the 34th Bomb Squadron as B-1s, and the 34th Bomb Squadron was leading that effort. And I have to give a shout out to the backseaters in those jets because they're the ones that control the timing. And you can't get better timing than at the very last note of the national anthem for your flyby to have you over the target. But it's bigger than that, isn't it? I mean, this is an example like the operational examples we saw, the bombing of the nuclear facilities in Iran, the takedown of Venezuela, and all of these operations. This is an example of the type of the things that we do to train these Americans to do that job flawlessly. Because getting 7 B-2s over the target in Iran with no shots literally being fired at them, no maintenance failures, is really just a huge outcome that was made by the people that prepared the jets that we saw yesterday, that we just saw in that video. Those maintenance kids, men and women out there, officers and enlisted, are the ones that made that miracle over Iran happen, because it was a miracle as somebody that's pushed jets for a living.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, such a beautiful sight of American air power, the sound of freedom. I love it. Gives me chills every time you see something like that. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I think as we're both pilots, a lot of times the pilots get all the applause, so to speak, when really there is so much that goes in behind the scenes for you to get in that cockpit, take off, do everything that you need to do that is keeping you safe and providing you what you need to accomplish the mission. You know, everything from the fuelers, the weather guys, the nav, the mechanics, like you said, the strategists for like a mission like Iran, and the operations. It is so much planning, and then yes, the execution is on the pilots, and they are the best in the world. And we have seen that play out over the last year with these operations that have happened. We saw it in Venezuela, Iran. It is the literal best of the best that exist in this world who are carrying out these operations and having them be carried out so flawlessly. You know, they make it look as easy, but it is absolutely anything but.
Yeah, you know, and early in my career, when the Grenada operation happened, and before that, Desert One, the operation that failed out in the deserts of Iran, trying to save the hostages under Carter, we weren't able to talk to each other on the radios. So when I see a formation made up of Navy, National Guard, and Air Force aviators that are able to get over the target right on the exact time they need to be there. I don't care whether it's a Super Bowl flyby or if it's a bombs on target issue. There was a time in my military career where we couldn't do that. That says something for us to be able to execute joint warfighting operations, doesn't it?
It really does. And it's actually much more dangerous than flying with your own branch, your own units, the people that you're used to flying with. We always said when we were in Iraq or Afghanistan and you're doing your RIP TOA with the unit that's coming in to replace you, or you're the unit going into country, that's the most dangerous time of your combat year that you're there, is when you're doing the RIP and you're flying with a pilot from the incoming unit and you're the pilot from the outgoing unit. And more problems and accidents happen with that because of crew coordination, and you're working with different people and you guys operate differently, you train differently. Even though, you know, you both may be in the Army and you have the same standard operating procedures and stuff like that, you're just not used to working together, not used to communicating, and it's very dangerous. So when you, like, to your point about the joint operations being to operate so so seamlessly, that says a lot about the level of their expertise.
Yeah, and sometimes we get criticized by doing events like the Super Bowl, but every second of that, from the planning to the preparation by the maintenance personnel and the execution by the pilots and the weapon systems officers, is an extremely valuable training session, isn't it?
Yeah, I actually, this fell under me when I was working at the Pentagon, was these aerial shows. And
Mhm.
to me, I don't get the controversy. It's phenomenal for recruitment. And then it's also American patriotism, and American patriotism is back. We are allowed to show it, and we are allowed to be proud of our military and our country and what we are capable of doing. We want to see that. And that's good for our nation. That's good for our citizens to be like, my tax dollars are going to ensure that we have that equipment and those pilots in the military that can go fly in the dead of night to the other side of the world and take out targets that are building a nuclear program. Like, people need to be proud of what our military is capable of and the people serving in it to accomplish that. And so we need these patriotic moments. I think it's important. There should be no controversy around this. This is a positive. This is, American military might on display for the world to see, and it is a very positive, good thing.
Yeah, and I think it's important to go back to our civilian population discussion when you say that, because Secretary Hegseth and his team are out touring some defense industry manufacturing facilities today, and he was at Lockheed Martin and in Anduril afterwards were the two that I saw. And at both of those, you have large numbers of civilian workers that are building these tools that these Americans that we recruit, that are stepping up to volunteer to serve their country and do what we need them to do. You have these civilians that are in masses and they're shouting. I saw it today. I think it was at the Lockheed Martin facility. They just break out and chanting USA, USA, USA. We need that type of spirit amongst our civilian population as we rebuild our manufacturing capability, don't we?
We absolutely do. And look, like especially modern day, the primes take a lot of heat in the defense industry, and they're crucial for the defense industrial base, for us to have the equipment that we have, that we use on these missions. They are absolutely a critical element to it. Do we need the startups that are producing this new and innovative technology as well in the defense industry? Absolutely, but there is room for both across the table. When it comes to acquisitions, yes, things need to be modernized and streamlined and made more efficient so we can get that technology into the military in the hands that need it. But you're right. These are Americans who are building things in America to service our military, to ensure, we stay the most elite fighting force in the world.
Do you think, speaking of non-primes, do you think having young men and women like, for example, Palmer Luckey, Elon Musk, that are energizing these new manufacturing and designs of new equipment entering into the defense industry, that's as important as keeping the primes going and increasing their capability, right? Because we want the younger generation of leaders and entrepreneurs and those kind of folks to be very motivated to do things like save American manufacturing, right?
Absolutely. The Palmer Luckeys of the world, the Elon Musks of the world, they are such a crucial component to technology and inspiring those younger minds to, build for America and create technology that is going to benefit us. And I am glad to see them, pursuing what they have in defense, because it is so important. And for so long, you saw some of the bigger companies sort of shy away from that, like American greatness and American patriotism. Like you saw, what I'm referring to is some of the technology companies that didn't want to get contracts with the Pentagon because they feared that they were, their technology could hurt someone or one of our adversaries, stuff like that. And so it's great to see some of these companies being like, no, we want to give our technology to the military so they can accomplish their mission and we can, defeat and win against our enemies. That mindset of these very bright minds is so important, that they love America, that they've, made it their life's work to ensure that we have it. So I think, yes, it's very important. And for young people to, have them as idols and see them as people who are doing great things for our country. And it is okay to, and even a great thing, to love America and want to make it a better place like those people are doing.
Oh, it absolutely is. And I forgot to mention Joshua Steinman, who I know through X.
Yeah.
I try to support him because he is an entrepreneur that teaches. He not only starts his own companies, but he takes the time to teach the young men and women that ask him how to do their own. And these are the kinds of men and women that are reflective of the manufacturers that really allowed us to win World War II, which were not defense contractors. They were manufacturers of cars and tractors like Henry Ford and those kind of folks that believed in the country and stepped up and stepped forward at that time. That's why I think even civilian manufacturing increases are very, very valuable. Well, Amber, thank you so much for your time
100%.
today. This has been fantastic. So tell folks where they can find you and what's next on your plate.
Yeah, so you can find me on X at Amber Smith USA. Talking about all this stuff that we talked about today over there on X. Just, continuing the good fight, ensuring that our military has what it needs policy-wise to, ensure that we're the best military in the world. And go check out Coalition for Military Excellence as well, an organization doing phenomenal stuff to ensure that our military is on the right track and leadership has what they need to ensure that wokeness is out of the military and that our service members have what they need to succeed.
Well, thank you very much. We will see you around, I'm sure, especially around the Coalition for Military Excellence. Well, tomorrow's Training Tuesday. Jake Novak will be back with us, folks. And we've got a lot to talk about outside of the military. There's just a lot going on, and I'll see you then.
We have a big announcement, folks, something we've been waiting on for several months, and it's now here. It's called Bella Melt. You were on it for just 1 week when you lost 3 pounds. So in the first week, you lost 3 pounds on this, right?
That is correct.
Your GLP-1 is a natural hormone that's in every single one of our bodies. And your GLP-1 lets you know if you're full. It's a satiety hormone. So when your GLP is working properly, it does help suppress your appetite as well as reduce those cravings. It's a sugar-free, fast melt caramel. So what